It should never surprise anybody that a studio head at Disney would say something stupid. Right here, Kevin Feige has basically said they're not going to resurrect or bring back Iron Man. Considering Iron Man is the most popular character in the MCU, it would probably be a good idea, considering the Marvels crashed and burned, all because of Kevin Feige's girlfriend, Brie Larson, was in it, and it's terrible. It just, look, there's no way I would go to see the Marvels. Chick lit, femme-centric garbage led by one of the worst people on the planet, Brie Larson, who's basically only one step up from Amber Heard, isn't going to interest me, all right? But Feige, instead of saying we have to go back and probably fix what we did to Iron Man, no, of course not. But what's the thing here? They could bring him back in flashbacks or do something else. Robert Downey Jr.'s character was very near and dear to the fans of the franchise. But here's the difference between how Feige handled Iron Man's demise and Lucasfilm handling the demise of Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. Iron Man went out like a fucking stud. Okay? He went out like a stud. Anybody who's seen that part of the movie knows that it was the beautiful, heroic ending that the character deserved. Okay, so Feige wins points just for that alone over Kennedy, over the Pablo Hidalgos, over the Rian Johnsons, over the J.J. Abrams, okay? And when I think about it, it really, first off, it's stupid not to bring him back. It's just, But then I think, should the character just stay dead? There is a cause for that, okay? It's like when people like Star Wars Theory ask to bring Mace Windu back. It wasn't because he was a great character. It's because they think he's cool, and he's not. He's a jerk. But should they bring Iron Man back if he's dead? There's something to be said to closing the chapter. But you have to be ready and willing to begin again on your feet. And so far, since Avengers Endgame ended, Marvel movies have been mediocre to shit. Okay? I can't think of anybody who's a Marvel fan who liked Doctor Strange, Shang-Chi, The Eternals, and then this dumpster fire of feminazi bullshit and intersexual feminism, the Marvels. I mean, even the kid playing the youngest hero was like, I know it wasn't very good. Because it wasn't. Okay, it's a paycheck. Now, is it a good idea to maybe bring Robert Downey Jr. back? Maybe to get the fans back? But if it's like if it's like a back, like a flashback, people will just treat it as like a big fucking deal. And you will have, I think, an even more fracturing of the fandom on that note. So while Feige might be stupid about this, and I think he is kind of stupid about not bringing him back, you got to think, is it a good idea to bring him back if the fans are just going to poo-poo it? Okay. I look at it as maybe an opportunity to tell the story in a different way. Okay. But let's talk about what Star Wars did to Han Solo. All right. First off, Han Solo is nothing like Luke Skywalker. Han has been on his own basically his whole life, taking care of himself. He is an archetype based on the characters that John Wayne played, Ethan in The Searchers, the young gunfighter in Stagecoach, and others. He's also kind of based on Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name. We did not get to see the side of Han Solo that would be the survivor, except for when he shot Greedo. Okay, and because George Lucas was such a hero worshiper of John Ford, and the difference between John Ford and John Wayne and Clint Eastwood is Clint Eastwood's character would shoot someone in the back. He would shoot them before they had a chance. Okay. John Ford's, because of the fact that he knew Wyatt Earp, came out of it with this kind of idea of quasi-honor. And that's why Lucas changed from Han shooting first to Greedo shooting first and missing. Now, it's one of those things where it's like, I like the fact that he shot first because I like that almost amorality that goes along with that. But I'm also not a person that's going to go after George Lucas for being upset about changing how that happened. The thing about Han Solo is that he is a hero waiting to be discovered. Okay. And there are a lot of moving parts to how that happens. And the biggest thing is meeting Leia. Okay. There's a part of him that is not comfortable with this callous, man with no name kind of persona. This loner kind of thing. All right? And Leia, whether he wants her to be or not, is a lifesaver in some ways, in many, many ways for him. Okay, so, and he rediscovers the idealism that took him to the Imperial Academy, right? And because I don't consider Solo a Soy War story to be his background story, these ideals that he had, this sense of right and wrong, led him to freeing Chewbacca from slavery, okay? And he had long since beat that part of himself down to embrace the instincts of a survivor. Okay, the instincts of a guy who would scam someone to make a kill. You know what I mean? Which, whether it's score a good amount of goods to sell or what have you. Okay, Han dabbled in bounty hunting and everything else. Okay, but that idealist was still there. Leia shows up and he rediscovers himself. Okay, but filmmakers are different now. Well, at least a few of them are. J.J. Abrams has long since given up the ideas of right and wrong in dealing with heroes. And Kathleen Kennedy wanted to see Han Solo driven into the ground. Walks away from his wife and his kid. Drunk deadbeat dad Han Solo. All right, goes back to smuggling. None of the changes he's made. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Left-wing social justice assholes do not agree that people change. In fact, their political philosophy dictates that people do not change ever in their whole lives. This is a very insidious, nefarious way of looking at humanity. It's dehumanizing, and it's a really shitty way of writing. Okay, so we got devolved Han Solo showing up in TFA. But instead of giving him not triumphant, but glorious, I'm going to say martyrdom that he deserved, he goes all like a bitch. Okay, he goes and tries to talk his son back to coming back home and to dumping this adventure and bullshit. And instead of the kid going, I can't, Dad, and walking away, little prick kills him. Okay, I'm going to have a lot more to say about that. Okay, but to remind you guys of what it looked like, here it is. So now we saw the dead dying like a bitch scene. We have Adam Driver now crying like a little bitch himself about the fact that he's never going to live it down. No, he's not. And what's very strange is there were articles that came out after The Force Awakens arrived where he said it took him about 4 months to make the decision to make this movie because he was not sure he wanted to take it because of what the character has to do. Okay, yeah, well, dude, you decided to make it. Okay, you are a former Marine, and you got to take responsibility for making the stupidest decision you could ever make. All right, but J.J. Abrams could have come up with a plethora of different ways of handling that moment where Kyle Ron doesn't have to make that decision. For some fucking reason, J.J. Abrams and Larry Kasdan thought this was the perfect way to usher Han Solo out of the franchise. Dying like a fucking villain, falling up, being kicked off scaffolding or catwalk like Darth Vader threw Palpatine off. I want you to think about that. And now you've got the actor who didn't have to take the role. He didn't have to take the role, whining about taking the role. All right, what's wrong with this picture? What is the problem that you guys understand that I'm having with this? What Driver was part of, he'll never live down because it was evil and wrong. Let's talk about Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is quintessential young hero on his journey. All right, he is the archetype that Joseph Campbell talked about. Okay. Luke is also the avatar for George Lucas. Luke Skywalker, George Lucas. All the way down to his name, for crying out loud. And if you think about George Lucas, the first character you're going to think of is Luke. Second one is either Han Solo or Princess Leia. And the third is Indiana Jones. Okay. Luke is his stand-in. Like I said, he's his avatar. And what is going on with The Last Jedi is Rian Johnson, because he's a social justice warrior, a very, very hardcore left-wing bigot, social justice pig who hates billionaires, but he has, hundreds of millions of dollars himself, wanted to go personally after George with The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi is more about knocking George off his seat than it is taking Luke down. Because if you do it to Luke, you're doing it to George. And there are plenty of moments in TLJ, like when Luke says he's never going to train another Jedi. All right, that's an attack on George. There are others where when he finds out Han is killed, he decides to stay on the island instead of going to help his sister. Luke Skywalker would never do that. Okay, why is Rian Johnson doing this? Because, and then he basically said this: when you meet your heroes, they're never who you expect them to be. Now, obviously, Rian Johnson has a problem with George Lucas. And Kennedy, I think, basically resents him. She resents Steven Spielberg. She resents Harrison Ford. Which is why she allowed Rian Johnson to go off and try to decapitate Luke Skywalker, who is, of course, the avatar for George Lucas. And the scene where Luke is milking that sea cow, or whatever the fuck that is a commentary on George making money on the merchandise. The green milk. Money's green. Okay, that's the color that the U.S. Mint prints American money. Okay. And To remind you guys of what it looked like, here it is. This is an attack on George Lucas. When Luke finally does show up, he doesn't show up in person. He puts out an image, like almost like a Force Skyped hologram. Now, this is actually a Sith thing the Sith would do. It is not something a Jedi does. So already, it's the wrong lure. But when you've got your bestest friend ever, Pablo Hidalgo, basically helping you, you're not going to do the right thing. And this is basically another comment on George Lucas. It's also, again, I'm going to say it, an attack on Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker doesn't personally confront Kylo Ren. All right. He puts his Force persona out there, is sitting on his island on his rock, imagines he sees the twin sons of Tatooine, and fades away. Dies like a bitch. All right? Dies like a bitch. Look, the entire TLJ was a middle finger to George Lucas personally. It was a middle finger to the fans. It was a middle finger to Western culture and what we consider to be vital and heroism. It's a middle finger to individuality, because what it did was it took away what made Jedi unique by making everybody a Jedi. Okay, now George Lucas has said that yes, anybody can learn how to use the Force, but depending on who you are and how attuned you are to the Force, that's how much more you have to work on it. Like Anakin Skywalker was very, very natural at it because he is literally the chosen one. Obi-Wan Kenobi, fairly high midichlorian count, the chosen one. But again, there's individuality in it. And that's something that Rian Johnson, Pablo Hidalgo wanted to attack. Okay. Being your own person and an individual goes against everything the collectivist Frankfurt School fucktards want in the world. Okay. This is why they get called NPCs. This is why they get called social justice warriors. Everybody has to look alike, talk alike, be alike. Okay. Which is dehumanizing. So not only do they dehumanize Luke Skywalker, by the way, they portrayed him in The Last Jedi, they dehumanize George Lucas, they dehumanize and take away the essence of what made Star Wars great. Okay? And that, in my opinion, is the wrong message. And that, in my opinion, is why, even if Kevin Feige's making the wrong judgment call on Iron Man, at least when Iron Man went out, he went out like a badass. Okay, he went out, like John Basilone on Iwo Jima. Okay, he didn't go out like a bitch. He didn't go out like Han Solo did. And then Adam Driver cries about it like a little bitch. He didn't go out like Luke Skywalker. Not showing up personally. All right? He has to Force Skype or whatever. Project himself, which kills him, which is stupid. Okay. And every moment in TLJ was a personal fuck you from Rian Johnson for whatever slight George Lucas made to him. Every moment of that movie. Okay? So this was the video I wanted to make in response. Cameron's got a great Patreon up there. So go check it out. This is Steph signing out. See you around the galaxy.